Barry Maguire, welcome to Eyes Wide Open. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, we've known each other a few weeks.
Yeah.
Only briefly. I've made a lot of friends during this lockdown. A lot of interesting friends. You being one of them, and you've become infamous now with your almost daily or even weekly monologues to camera on Instagram, in which you're calling out all comers and anybody who isn't, up for this challenge. So tell us, Barry, a little bit about how these Instagram videos came about, because there's causing so much damage.
Well, the original one that came about and I called out Joe Anderson was when we heard the news about the Tier 3 and we were going in and he was going to do this and it was for the good of the city. He's never done fuck all good for the city. He's done what's good for him from day one. And when that, I could see then that was going to affect all of the self-employed people with their own businesses in the city. I just got the phone out. I gave it to my wife, asked her to hold the phone up, and I had a little rant, and it just went viral.
Is this the first time you've ever done anything like that online?
Yeah, it was just a rant and because it went viral, and then people would then tell me, "Don't stop." So that's when it's been like one or two a week then, because there's been developments all the time. So every time there's a development, I'll get back on and do another little rant. And that's all they are at the moment, the rants. But I'm trying to keep it as truthful and as factful as I can. And obviously, it all comes from the heart. So I'm not even thinking through half of this. It just comes, it just spills off the tongue. So if there's a little bit of emotion there, it's just flowing off the tongue, And I think that's what people are resonating with at the moment.
They certainly are, because your videos have just gone viral all over the place and everyone's talking about them, and it's all positive from my perspective. But I know you've received a little bit of criticism for them too. And what would you say about that?
Well, that was the surprising thing, because I weren't expecting that. Because at first, all of it was... At first, no one criticised me at first until the first video went viral. And then the second one went viral as well. And no one was criticising me. It was just everyone was thanking me and whatever. It was all praise. And then someone then has thought, we've got to stop this, because he's getting too much support. So then that's when all of the hate and they started going through my social media and filtering through my social media, and they were trying to do a little bit of character assassination. And I'm thinking to myself, you're trying to assassinate my fucking character. I've done that hundreds of times over the years. I'm a fucking serial killer when it comes down to my character assassination, and I don't fucking care, But then obviously they started to look at going after me wife and that as well then, do you know what I mean? And that's when, and I just thought, right, I'm just going to take it down. So I took my social media down, or one of them, and then I just carried on, and I just thought, now I got a bit of advice from Julie, and she was just saying, just block and delete. And it's the easiest thing to do. And as you were doing, you might just be there for 20 minutes a day, block, delete. But it's so satisfying, yeah. And liberating, and you're doing it as you're having a cup of tea and a piece of toast, and it's fucking great.
So would you say that this process of speaking out has been a learning curve for you, or an awakening in itself?
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't expecting anything like this. I really wasn't. And as I say, I get my strength from the people who are telling me to carry on. This is good. This is all for the movement going forward, for our freedoms, for our liberties. So I get my strength from that. And these other people are trying to pull me back. And it's just it's a drop in the ocean. From all of the praise that I'm getting, the negative is a drop in the ocean. And then once I block and delete, it's not even a drop in the ocean. They've gone. I said in a previous video, it's like flushing a turd down the drain. They're fucking gone,
So, what was the most surprising thing about the criticism from? I mean, did you learn who was behind it, or what movement was behind it?
Well, yeah, it was basically people from this city, which I was more surprised at. People from this city, which is like, it's, it's a hard working class city, this. And it was working class people who was behind it. And in fact, some people that I even know.
So that was what surprised me with me. I had my own similar situation a good few years ago. And, I'm a working class lad myself, and we had a struggle against the banks. And, it was when the struggle became, very public, I faced some criticism, from the same people, from the same sources. And I was like, it's not the bankers attacking me, it's my own people I've grown up with, and they turned on me for some unknown reason because they disagree with some of the ideas I had at the time. I don't know, but that was the most surprising thing and the one that woke me up the most, so I can empathize with your situation at the moment because I've been through it myself, in 2015, 16 or something, so when I was watching it happen, I was watching from an experience vantage point.
It is. It's like it's surprising because you think these are the people who should be
on our side.
Yeah. When like we've all got the same. Listen, we all won our freedoms back and we all won our liberties back, and unfortunately for these people, it's not about our freedoms and liberties. I don't think it's about them maintaining their political hold on this city. That's what I think it is.
It's an interesting angle. I think
they want to maintain their political hold, and when they see someone coming out, I'm never going to be a politician. I've got far too much fucking baggage for anything like that. But they still see me as a threat, even though I'm not a threat. I really am. Like as soon as all of this goes away, I go away. All I want is our freedoms back, and it's not just for me; it's for everybody. And as soon as this all goes away and we get back to our lives the way they were, not this new normal bullshit, going back to the way it were, I go away then. I'm not looking for anything else out of it,
So famously now, you've got your own boxing gym and you are defying the regulations that affect your business, your livelihood, your right to earn, to put food on the table. How are you finding your current standing?
Well, I've had the police out already, and they've been out and they've told me that I shouldn't be open, and I've said, well, I've got to stay open. This is my way of putting food on the table, and that's the only way that I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay. I'm not doing anything illegal. I don't think I'm doing anything illegal. According to the guidelines, they're just guidelines at the moment, or statutes. I'm not up on law, but they're not laws. They're just statutes. So therefore, I am staying open. They're advising me to close. As I say, they don't want to be there telling me to close. They have to. They've got a duty to go there. If someone makes a complaint, they've got a duty to turn up. But they were quite reasonable with me. They've told me to close. I've told them that I can't. Then I've closed the door. They've told me that they're going to give me £1,000 fine, I think the first one is. And then each time they come out, it's going to be more. So I'm just expecting more fines as we go along.
What's your long-term strategy with this? Are you just going to keep going and stay open and test the water and find out how long you can survive, the harassment?
It's not about testing the water and seeing how long I survive, because I'll survive as long as it fucking takes. Even if that I've got no one coming through the doors, I'll still be open for business. Because I've got to, I am a bit of a stubborn cunt, and I will stay open. I won't just close the doors because someone's told me to, because I believe it's my human right to earn money, and as long as I'm not breaking any laws or doing anything criminal, why should I close? When they were at my front door on Wednesday, next door, I'm not going to say what their business is, but then next door but one, and the next unit along for me, they were all out. They were all busy, and they're allowed to carry on because they're deemed as essential businesses or whatever. But they were allowed to carry on. No one's gone there. And I had 2 people in my gym, and there was 10 people in the next unit and 10 people in the next one along.
It's the rules. They just seem so arbitrary, don't they? It's like, you know, why are these selecting hospitality, for instance? You know, it's the 4th biggest industry in the UK, and they've just closed it down. Yeah. It's gone. You know, it's gone. I don't know how quick it's going to return, but it's not going to come back, you know, overnight. It's going to take a good 12 months, 24 months, who knows? And the same with gyms. Why close the gyms? Why close the places where people can exercise and, you know, maintain their mental health?
Yeah, I see. What it is I didn't want to be selfish and just come across and like you know, some of the detractors like that we were talking about before, the haters and all of them idiots. They were trying to like character assassination. Oh, he's only in it for himself, and that couldn't have been further from the truth, because even when we got a bit of a reprieve, the gyms, I was still out in force. I was still supporting this movement because I was looking at the bigger picture. And I didn't even know where I was going there.
So we were talking about the government selecting certain businesses to stay open and others to close in what seems to be just some random decision, or if it's actually, you know, a little bit more cynical than that. You know, that they're choosing gyms, places where people can stay fit and healthy and mentally healthy. Yeah. You know, and you know, why we think that's, you know, happening and whether it's unfair.
Yeah, I just don't know why they've chose gyms and the hospitality, because that, I really can't understand why they've done that, because that is a big, especially in this city. This city relies on it so much. Totally. When the likes of, like, I'm an Evertonian, but when Liverpool FC are at home, this city benefits so much because of, it's a worldwide brand, Liverpool FC. It's a worldwide brand, so the amount of, you know, the Norwegians, the Irish, and wherever else they come from, they come into this city, they fill our hotels, and they fill our pubs, and they fill our bars and restaurants. And that's every time Liverpool are at home. Everton, not so much, but we'll get there in a couple of years' time.
Okay, that's another story for another day, I think.
A long story, I think.
What do you think of the current resistance to Tier 3 lockdown in Liverpool? You know, the Save Our City group movement, and, you know, you were at the march last week. I was there as well. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's been eye-opening for me, because people are working behind the scenes. Now, all I do is I just turn up. I turn up and then I might have a little rant on the mic. But these people are working so hard. Like that's what I really noticed at first. These people are working so hard behind the scenes to get these events put on, and they have to do with, you know, the risk assessments, and they have to liaise with the council and with the police to make sure that these are, well, before they actually ban them. And they're putting their reputations on the line, and then everyone else that's turning up there now, they're all putting their reputations on the line because they're all at risk of arrest, you know, and they've already been warned. The Liverpool Echo were complicit with the Liverpool City Council and with Merseyside Police, and they're all complicit with the government. So everyone at the moment, and they're trying to say that it's for our safety and it's for our health. It isn't. Because it's all contradictory. I can't see how they can say that, you know.
What I thought about Saturday was good for morale, because the events that have preceded it, you know, after the first one, numbers dwindled a bit and it was a bit demoralising. And then on Thursday, the police got heavy-handed and people started getting arrested, and it wasn't a nice situation. And then I think that kind of had a galvanising effect on people watching, thinking we've got to go down and get involved. And then Saturday, I mean, that was a good few thousand people there.
Yeah, there was a few thousand people there. I got there a little bit late. I got stopped by the police on Renshaw Street, and then I got diverted, but then I joined up with the main group, and as I say, there must have been easily 3,000 people there. And as soon as I seen the group, I could see all of the happy faces and all of the, it was a really great vibe. And like, I'm 6'6", and as soon as I seen them, there was a little bit of an extra bounce in my walk. I became 6'10" over like a couple of seconds, you know, because I seen it, and like it rejuvenated me then, you know.
Yeah, because when we first arrived, it was a weird vibe because the police were out in force. I mean, I don't remember seeing so many police for such an event, and they had decided that they wanted to dominate St. George's Hall front and back. Right, so they put a police perimeter around the entire building, loads of them. Yeah. Police on horses, armed police, the lot. Yeah. They were saying, "You're not coming on this space." And then everyone arrived, and it was like, what do we do next? And it was just a spontaneous decision to march, and all of a sudden there was a few thousand people marching around Liverpool trying to avoid the police on one side and taking left turns here and right turns. And there was no plan as such. It was just a completely spontaneous event.
Spontaneous,
And the longer it went on, I think we were walking for about 2.5 hours. The longer it went on, the bigger it became, until it finished over by... the Echo Arena.
That's where it finished.
Yeah, and everybody dispersed. But it was, like you say, it was more of a carnival atmosphere than it was an angry protest. Yeah, it was good. It was fun.
I've been at 3 of the 4 now. Has it been 4? Has it?
I think it's 5 now.
5. Yeah. I've been to 3 of them. No, I've been to 4 of the 5, and none of them have been angry. There's been a little bit of argy-bargy where the police have tried to arrest people. And then it just quietened down and things like, because the people didn't want to get involved in any violence, so it never resulted in any violence in the end. There was a little bit of argy-bargy at the end last night where the police went in and they grabbed someone with a speaker, didn't they? But it quelled off. It never resulted in anything,
Well, didn't you have your own experience where you witnessed an arrest? Because we don't really know what people are getting arrested for, because there's no crimes being committed here, and our right to assembly is one of our most fundamental rights. Yeah. It's fundamental. It's part of the few human rights that we've got left. And what seems to be happening is that the police are trying to get people on fixed penalty notices for breaching coronavirus regulations, whatever the fuck they are. And if they're asking you your name and address, and if you don't give them your name and address, that then allows them, under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, to arrest you.
Yeah, because it's an obstruction then.
Yeah.
Because so that's what happened when they came to my business premises, because I said, I'm not going to give my name, I don't need to. They said, well, we've had a complaint, and now under these new corona regulations or whatever, we see you now as obstructing us in our line of duty. And that's the way they're getting around it now. So then basically I gave my name.
Yeah, because what I'm finding is that if you give your name and address, then they happy with that. They let you go. They let you go. You can go back to the protest if you want, and then they're going to issue you a fixed penalty notice at some time in the future. Yeah. If you don't give your name and address, then they're locking you up. Yeah. In some cases, some of the people we know for hours. Yeah. 16 hours and. As I understand it, they can only hold you for 24 hours before they've got to release you unless they're going to charge you. But I don't know anyone that's stuck it out for 24 hours yet without giving the name and address. But so it seems to be a little bit of cat and mouse between both sides on, what's really going on here.
Yeah,
didn't you? So sorry to interrupt you. I was just picking up on a little video I'd seen with you and some guy that was being arrested, and you decided to make yourself vocal.
Yeah, because he'd been arrested because he wanted to carry on walking towards the march, and then when the police actually physically stopped him, they then asked him his name. As soon as he said, no, I'm not going to give you your name, that's when they said, okay, we're going to arrest you now under these new coronavirus guidelines. So you could see he wasn't happy about being arrested, and he was struggling a little bit. Not much, he was just like, what's going on? He was scared a little bit, to be honest, because he wasn't expecting to be arrested. So then I said to him, do not resist, because once you resist, that's then an arrestable offence.
Well, it massively escalates it. Then all of a sudden they've got something serious to get you on. And then
so there's the serious thing they can arrest you on then, because the one that they've originally stopped you for, that won't even be on the charge sheet. Yeah. It'll be the resisting of arrest. So as long as you go peacefully, because the way I see it, I don't think the police want to arrest us.
No.
The ones on the front line, they don't want to arrest us, We're just like a little bit of a thorn in their side at the moment because we are going against these coronavirus guidelines. But if these coronavirus guidelines were implemented in China or Iraq or one of these places, that would be on BBC News, and the reporters would be narrating it as if it was some draconian measures from these warlords, and like it's disgusting. It's like it's a tyrannical regime. This is happening in our country now.
But the problem we've got is the entire media are lockstep with the government.
Supporting them.
They are the propaganda voice of the government. So there is no criticism. There is no outrage from the media. So that keeps the public compliant, generally speaking. It's only the people that the propaganda doesn't work on are the ones that are pushing back.
Yeah.
So
that's the way I see it. The way things have changed over the last couple of years, whereas in China, that type of stuff has always happened because the media were complicit with it. Our media is now complicit with it, so we're no better than China at the moment, and I think that's where it needs to change. And that's the media all across. Like if you have a look what's happening in America as well at the moment, the media are complicit in any illegal stuff that's going on over there as well, and they're not reporting on the real news. They're just reporting on what they want the public to hear.
Well, the power of propaganda is, enough to change armies, pointing the guns in one direction to the other, and they know it, and that's why they want full control over the media, because it's not a voice of truth, it's a voice of manipulation.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from, Barry? Where did you grow up?
I originally grew up in Walton.
Yeah.
Originally grew up in Walton, and then I'm a little bit like a gypsy. I've just lived all over the place then, all over the city, all over the country as well. I've moved and I've lived in different places as well.
What was it like growing up in Liverpool in the 70s?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great because, it's not like now. You were out on the streets, you were playing football in the rain, in the mud, you'd come home, you'd be covered in shite. You would black, you'd come in and you have holes in your clothes, then you get smacked, washed, and then to bed, But it was just great. It's like the kids now, I don't think, experience anything like that. It's too sterile now, But yeah, it was great growing up. And it was hard as well. It really was. It was hard. It was like the 70s, the 80s. It was the, I don't know if I can even, like in this city, if you say this word, it was the Thatcher years,
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard it was hard,
Well, she made an example of this city, didn't she? And, decided to show the rest of the country if they step out of line or speak out of line, this is what will happen to you too.
Yeah. Well, I think you make your own choices.
Mm-hmm.
I think you make your own choices. And I was in, for instance, I can't blame all of the wrong stuff that went on in my life, I can't blame on someone else. That would be the easy option for me to say, the reason that I turned to crime when I was younger was because of Thatcher and the Tory government. It wasn't great in Liverpool, but if you wanted to make the right choices, you could have done something in this city at that time.
So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, tell me about your teenage years and going into your early 20s. What did you find yourself doing, and how did you make ends meet?
Well, it's the old adage, isn't it, where you get in with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
When I was part of that wrong crowd as well. It's easy to blame someone else and say, I got in with the wrong crowd. I might have even been the instigator of that wrong crowd. So, and to make ends meet, it was. We used to travel up and down the country, stealing cars, going to shoplifting, ram raids, stuff like that, And then obviously with that, because you're travelling up and down the country.
So when was this? How old were you when you were going through this little phase?
I'd like to say I was younger, but I think about 24, between the ages of 20 and 24.
Yeah.
So really, I should have known better. I'd like to have said that I was 16 to 20, with them teenage years, but I was a little bit older. But it was just one of them things back then,
And what did you find, the mistakes that you made there? Because did you spend some time in jail?
Yeah, spent time in jail up and down the country as well. You know, I've been in some of the bigger institutions, like, you know, when I've been in Brixton and in London.
What was that like?
It was, do you know what? It was good. I look back at them fondly. I don't look back at them as if like, because Brixton at the time, say for instance, they had 1,000 prisoners in. 800 of them prisoners were black. So when you come from Liverpool, it's a completely different demographic. So like, and it was good because once you start playing, like we used to have like a cage where you used to play five-a-side football, but it wasn't football. It was like a mixture between rugby and boxing, but a ball was involved, you know. And that's where you get the respect, because I'd be in there and I'd probably be one of the only white lads in there, you know. And a lot of them became friendly with me. So when I was walking up and down the wings, you get that respect because you're not shying out of anything, do you know what I mean? And you got a little bit of respect. And I had a lot of friends in there while I was in there.
How long was you in Brixton for?
I was in there for about 8 months.
Yeah.
It was like a 12-month sentence. So I was in there, I was in there for about 8 months because I got held back got an extra couple of days put on for other stuff. Yeah, stupid stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that then. So where else did you spend time in jail?
You've been in Walton, which was a shithole and probably still is now. But when I was in prisons back then, it was slop out. There was like, you know,
Victorian.
So there was a Victorian prison, so it was slop out, and slop out was when the door got locked at night. That was it, and there was no sink, there was no toilet. You each had a bucket. You know, they were very nice where they gave you a bucket each. You didn't have to share one, and basically you shit and you piss in that bucket of a night. And when you get up of a morning, you go to the recess, which was halfway down the landing, and then you pour it out. And it's like a big sink, and it had a big plug hole in it. So it had the hole, it was about that big, and it was the most horrendous stench you could ever think of, because everyone's piss and shit was going down this plug hole.
So is that something you never forget?
That smell will never leave you. In fact, I was at Anfield last year, and the smell came back to me.
Jeez. Yeah. Shut up, you. Yeah, blue nose. Okay, right. So, was that 23-hour lockup in Walton at the time?
Yeah, Walton was 23-hour. Walton's probably the most draconian place I've been to. It really was, because you never got out. The only time you'd get out is if you got education. So like you had to do, in the morning, what you had to do is then, before you went for breakfast, they had all different desks with all different screws on these desks, and you had to go over to the first screw and you go, right, I want to put an application in to go to the church today. And I'm not religious or nothing, but you went just to get a cup of tea and a cake to get out the fucking cell.
Yeah.
You know, and listen to all of that la-di-da. And then you go to the next desk and you say, right, I want to put an application in to go to the gym. Then you go to the next desk and say, and if you needed to, we need to put an application in to see the doctor. And then the next desk, the application to whatever else, you know. If you never put them applications in, you didn't, you wouldn't get to the gym, you wouldn't get to see a doctor. They'd say, right, if you had an illness, right, you got to get up in the morning and put the application into. And I don't know if it still works like that, but your prison number always stays with you as well. So when you're putting in your application, you have to give them your prison number.
What was it?
And it was MBO 597.
Yeah.
That was the one that was in Brixton. You get a different prison number every time you go in. And then the other ones, but the other ones I can't remember, to be honest. FN61. But yes, but I always remember that one because that was my first one. And that was the longest one as well. But yeah, if you didn't put them applications in, it was just their way of controlling you. You know, you couldn't just go and see your mate first thing. You had to go and queue. And then if you queued, the longer you queued, the worse breakfast you got, because once you got to the servery, you were left with scraps then. But you had to go there to get... Now, I wanted to get out my cell. I didn't want to be sitting in there just wasting away. So I would go and I'd ask us to go for education. And it wasn't really education. It was just getting out the cell. I'd ask to go to church and I'd ask to go to the gym.
How did you manage, being locked up in the box, from a mental perspective? How did you deal with that time, sitting there waiting? Frustrating?
Yeah,
Did you
it
get
was.
used to it?
Because you never had no televisions. There was not like what you had was then you had a resistor radio, transistor radio, and that was your only outlet to outside life. But it was all then, obviously you couldn't plug it in. It was all down to batteries. So when you got your canteen every week, you had to save some money aside to have batteries. Now I was lucky because I didn't smoke. Never really not into drugs or nothing like that. So my only vice was cakes and biscuits and stuff like that. That was my only vice. Yeah, the hardcore stuff. Jammy Dodgers is at the top of that.
I imagine that must have been the hardest gear to get as well, like the proper contraband.
No, because obviously they sold that in the the canteen. They sold that in the canteen. But I was lucky because I didn't smoke. A lot of the lads, that's what they were. You'd have cellmates, and what they used to call them dimps. So whenever no one smokes real cigarettes, like most of it's just all roll-ups. So what would they call they were called straights, real cigarettes, but no one ever used to smoke them because they were too expensive. So you'd smoke roll-ups. Now some of the lads in there who didn't have enough money or whatever, I felt sorry for them sometimes, and they'd be walking around and they'd be picking up these little dimps. And one of my pad mates once, and I always remember this little, he come in and he emptied his pockets onto the table and he had about 20 little dimps and he opened them all up. And he had one skin and he opened them all up and he was just putting them all in one skin. And it took him about 5 minutes and then he rolled it up and it was thinner than a fucking match. And he put it in his mouth and as soon as he lit it, he went, and it was one. It went right down to his lips in one puff. And I looked at him and went, was that fucking worth it? And he went,
just the skin.
And he went, oh yeah, off one pull, And I feel alas on him then because, if I could help them out and I could get like ciggies off, like favours or whatever, I'd try and help them out, you know what I mean? Because I felt alas because they really, really needed that. That was their way of getting through the day. They needed to smoke. And I'm glad I've never smoked,
So how long was this cycle of crime, jail going on?
I say about 5 years. It was about 4 or 5 years. And then that's what, I had like one little moment where I got arrested in town and it was a friend of mine. It was just a fight. It was a scuffle. My friend hit somebody else. It was these two army lads who he was fighting with, and he hit one of them. I was there. He's took the chain off one of them, as a part of the fight. As he's got him down, he's then took the chain off him. And then we've gone our separate ways. And as I've been on my way home, a car pulled up alongside me with two police and these two lads in the back, and they've just pointed to me. And then obviously I've been arrested. And then I'm up now on a robbery charge, even though, sincerely, I've done a lot of shitty stuff in my life, but sincerely, I never done nothing. And I was looking to go away, like a robbery charge like that, robbery with violence, you're looking at 3 years. I just thought, fucking hell, not again. And fortunately for me, these two soldiers had fucked up with their story, and they've told two different stories, so the judge in court has turned round and he said, we're going to have to stop this now, and instructed the jury to come back with a not guilty verdict. He wouldn't accept anything else.
What was the problem with the story?
They just told two completely different stories. One was saying what would more or less happened was that I was just standing back, and the other one said that it was me who done it. And then there was other things that were and then obviously the police, they were trying to push a certain narrative as well, which was going towards me, because for them it was a win-win, because my previous crimes, there was violence involved in them, so therefore it was a win-win for them. We've got the cunt here, do you know what I mean? Even though they hadn't. And as always with me, I just used to go no comment anyway. I never used to give. It was like growing up in Liverpool and like you got caught by the police or whatever for anything, it was no comment. You never really give a statement. So they were going to run with that then, because they say if you go no comment, it may harm your
Defence.
You know. So, and they ran with that. I never gave any kind of statements, and as I say, luckily enough for me, the Crown Court judge instructed the jury to give a not guilty verdict. And then as I walked out of that court then, because I took my bag with me and everything, so I thought, I'm going here. So I took a little bag with me. I've been there before. I'm going to make sure I've got some luxuries with me when I actually go. I walked out of there and I just thought, you know what, this is it now. I've got to fucking do something else. And luckily enough for me, I'd never really worked, you know, I'd little jobs.
Just hustled.
Yeah, just hustled, you know,
yeah.
And well, to us, that was a job, you know. But then I just thought, you know, this isn't for me. And then luckily, I was speaking to an old mate of mine, and Mick, and his uncle had a warehouse in town, and he said, look, listen, we've got work here for you if you want it. Cash in hand, you can still sign on as you did back then. Do you know what I mean? Cash in hand, you can still sign on. And I went, right. And I haven't looked back. I don't think I've been out of work since then. I've always worked after that.
So that was like a bit of an epiphany for you, was it? Was, you know, this last chance of going to jail again and getting off with it?
I think so. I think something inside me woke up and said, fucking hell, you've just been given a chance, a lifeline here. Fucking take it.
Yeah. And
I took it. And people who I was around at the time, they didn't take their lifelines. They've done 10, and like after it, they went on to a little bit harder core stuff, which would have been, that was the next level for me. You know, I was always more, okay, we'll do what we have to do, but then they went into a little bit more violence and that with it.
This was 25 years ago for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So quite a long time ago.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, I think my last conviction, my last arrest was 92. My last conviction was 94 because I was on my toes they never caught me for 2 years. Do you know how they caught me? Signing on.
Oh, God.
They caught me at the door signing on.
Yeah. Like boys from the black stuff, that, innit?
But like, so I was on my toes for 2 years before they caught me for one of them. And then that was it then, you know. But yeah, it was an epiphany and I needed to take it. Unfortunately for me, unfortunately for the people around me, they never, and they ended up doing 10 years, 14 years. And some of them are out now and they must look back and think, fucking hell, you know.
So that's one thread of your story. Another thread is your boxing history.
Yeah.
So you was an ABA boxer. You was trained in Long Lane, which is a bit of a legendary boxing gym.
Yeah, it was a great boxing gym. Is
that where you started? And tell me how you got into boxing, why you decided to start doing it. Was it your dad or? Was
No. Far from it. Like what happened was I went to Long Lane ABC when in the 70s, and that it was like the coach then was a fellow called Jimmy Fitz, well known in the boxing fraternity in Liverpool.
He's a legend.
He was didn't mince his words, you know. And he had like a conveyor belt because the catchment area was like Walton and Norris Green and Sparrow. He had a great catchment area and he was just churning out schoolboy champion after schoolboy champion. So I goes along and like I was doing okay. I hadn't boxed for them. And I was doing okay with the training, and then they ask you to get medicaled. So I was due to get medicaled, and because I was getting into trouble in school and getting into trouble on the streets and whatever, like shoplifting and stuff, my dad had the bright idea to say, you're not going to the boxing no more, and you're not playing football. I was in the school football team, and I played for another local football team as well, so very sporty, and like as all kids were back then. And whereas you're supposed to promote them to go into them avenues to keep them away from trouble, his bright idea was to take us away from it. So all we did then was rebel, and I got into more trouble and more trouble and more trouble, you know, in schools and suspensions and, you know, and obviously...
Was you an angry kid?
No, never an angry kid. Never, like that. I think people think that because of me size and that. Never an angry kid. Never, anyone can never say I've been a bully. Never, you know, even though I've been, in fact, I've been bullied because when I was younger and I was bigger, the older lads And because I was I wouldn't say I was an angry, but I was definitely a cheeky bastard. And then the bigger kids would like, and because we were poor as well, and we only used to wear plimsolls, and we didn't have all the Adidas and all of like the Puma trainees and that, the Nike trainees. We used to get chased because we had shitty clobber, and yeah. So I was more bullied than being the bully, which is why now I don't think I've never been a bully, and I never will be a bully,
So is that one of the reasons why you learned how to scrap?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say I was a scrapper, to be honest, because I was never a hard case or anything in school, far from it. Never anything like that. It was only later, and then I didn't start boxing until I was 23. So it was in between me going in and out of jail. So like, I started boxing when I was on, and it was something just to keep me busy while I was on my toes. And then I started boxing. I went in and I seen Jimmy Fitz 8 years after last being into that gym, and I trained and I sparred, and he said, "We're going to get you on our next show." And I think this was September, and I went Wednesday, and he went next month. He said, "We'll get you medical next week." So he got me on the next show, and then I was sparring, and then
Heavyweight,
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I got back into it, because just by one of my friends, Tony, he boxed from there, and he asked me to go back in, do a bit of training, and it was Jimmy Fitz who asked me to box.
And what fights are memorable to you from that period?
I remember going to Blackpool. I always liked being the underdog.
Yeah.
So when we used to have our home fights in the Orrell Park Ballroom, and if I had people there behind me, and I'd have 20, 30 people behind me, I felt the pressure more. And
So like the away days more.
yeah. So when we went to Blackpool, I was on my own against a lad from there, and it was in this big, it was like a stadium. It was like on the pleasure beach, and looked a bit like the Royal Albert Hall. It's still there now. I don't know what it's called now, but it had layers of boxes, and then all of the tables out the front, and they were all screaming for this lad. And then that just got my back up, and I just think, well, your boy's going to get beat tonight. And whereas some people shy away from that, it emboldens me. It makes me stronger. I like being the underdog, and I boxed his head off. I've actually boxed better away than I do at home when the pressure's off.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your style?
Just a jabber and a mover.
Yeah.
That's
Win
the
by
way.
points?
Yeah, so I was never a big puncher or nothing like that, just a jabber and a mover, and that's the style that Long Lane was known for. They were actually, they were called dancers, because it was just all about the footwork, jab, getting in and out, and more about the art of boxing. There's different...
Describe that a little bit, take us into the art of boxing, because that interests me, that.
So basically, the art of boxing is hitting without being hit. So it's all about the timing. So you've got to get in range. So you've got to use your feet to get in range, and you've got to use your feet to get out of range. So it's timing. So what you would do is you would time the other boxer to try and, because I'm tall, I'll lean forward, and I'll offer me face and me nose. I'll lean forward, and as bait, they step in, I step back, lean back, and then I catch them as they're coming in. So it's and we were known as dancers because we were, boxing all around. But as you get, there's Kirby boxers were just known as hookers, where they just used to come in and they fight with the face. I think it's changed now. They've gone a lot more technical now. But back in the day, in the 70s, and the 80s, that's what they were known for.
So that Paul Hodgkinson came from that camp, didn't he?
Yeah, Paul Hodgkinson, and then Alex Moon was quite good. He's ended up doing a little bit of work with me on some of my boxing shows as well, Alex. And he boxed for a British title in the end. He done very well in the amateur game as well, where he boxed internationally as well, But a lot of them, from trying to think who's...
So was the Long Lane style unique in Liverpool, this dancing philosophy, the art of boxing?
I think it was back in the 70s, and then I think everyone else started to work off that, because Long Lane, when it first started I think it started in 1971, they had so many champions, and they were all schoolboys.
Did Andy Holligan come from Long Lane?
Andy Holligan came from there, but one of the best ones from there was a guy called Andy Murphy, a southpaw, and he was just phenomenal, you know. Unfortunately, he hit the last day I heard of him. He hit the went on the wrong road as well, and then he never actually boxed as a senior. But there's
a lot of tragic stories interwoven with boxing, isn't there? You know.
Yeah.
So how long did your journey in the ABA with Long Lane continue?
I got into the ABAs, and I went to the Rotunda, but it just didn't fit in there. It's one of them places. I went to the Rotunda. I left Long Lane because there was no sparring for me. I was basically in there as the only senior, and I was getting no sparring, and I was just going stagnant. And then I went to the Rotunda because my mate Mick, he boxed out of the Rotunda, and he asked me to come along. So I joined there, and once again, I wasn't really getting any sparring there other than like with Mick. Mick was a light heavyweight or a middleweight at the time, and I was a heavyweight going into the super heavyweights, and it wasn't really good for me because it's a different type of, and you need to be in there with the big guys. It's a different type of boxing altogether.
With the heavyweights?
Yeah, because it's a slower pace, bigger hitting, so, and then once you come into the grapples and that, the leaning on, when you lean and you got like someone 19 stone leaning on, it takes it out of you, so you want to try and stay away from that as much as you can. So I was even going stagnant there because I wasn't really getting me sparring there. And I had one campaign in the ABAs there, wasn't confident, went in, shouldn't have been boxing really because I had a chest infection and got beat. And then I just made a decision that wasn't the right place for me. So I went back to Long Lane. Because then,
how was that going? How was you received coming back? Because was it controversial you leaving for the Rotunda in the first place? I mean, what was the relationships like with the gym?
Well, the coaches had changed at the time. So Jimmy Fitz had passed away, and his son Peter had took over, and another coach had took over as well.
Just in between you leaving to the Rotunda.
Yeah. So when I went back, it was a completely different structure. And I was welcomed back, and I was welcomed back for two reasons, because a new young lad had just started there, and I would have helped. I helped him come along, and he helped me come along, David Price.
Okay.
So he just started there, and he was only like 16, 17, I think, at the time. So he needed heavyweight sparring, and he couldn't get it. So obviously now we worked off each other, and I learned a lot off him. And I hope he could say that he learned a lot from me in them years before he changed. And he ended up becoming So that year, I went into the ABAs and he went into the junior ABAs. He won the national junior ABAs.
Did you spar with David?
All the time.
Yeah.
As I say, that's why I think we learned a lot off each other. And I think that was the best I'd ever been as a boxer, because I had a genuine heavyweight in the gym, sparring with them.
What was it like
every week.
What was it like to spar with them? What was the banter?
It was great. This was before he learned to punch as well, because when he turned pro, he learned how to sit down on his punches and land with power. When he was in Long Lane, he was a dancer, like me. We were just like floating about the ring, and he had a really good jab, rapid, accurate jab, but the power wasn't there then.
So why wasn't the power there? Because he wasn't punching properly, or
he was still only a kid as well.
Yeah,
he was still only a kid, and he hadn't matured. He hadn't, But as he got older, even when he won the bronze medal in the Olympics, I still don't think he was punching that hard then, because he was a different style of boxing. As soon as he turned pro and he started sitting down on his punches, and like you plant your feet, he could whack, and he could just look at his record. He was dropping bodies left, right, and centre. So that brought me on, and it also brought him on. Well, I hope it did anyway. And then he went to a different gym. Then he went to the Solly. because they would have had cruisers in there, they would have had light heavies, but also once you go to a bigger club like that as well, it's well known all over the country, you know, and they got a bit more money sponsorship wise and stuff like that. So the training process, you get a little bit more help with the training process as well.
What's the toughest fight you've had? Who was the hardest boxer that you've faced?
That's a tough one. That, you know, we've never even. Yeah, there was a guy that I boxed once on. Do you ever remember the Al Dockers Club?
Yeah.
And I boxed a guy there. I can't even remember his name. He was a Scouser. And he was one of these little bobbers and weavers. He was only about, I'd say he was about 6 foot. So I had the height difference and everything. I had everything. I'd already beaten someone who had beaten him. And I just couldn't handle his style. He was just coming underneath. And in the amateurs, what happens is if you get cut, doesn't matter how big or small, it's getting called. It's a stoppage. They just don't let you carry on. And I got cut in the second round, and it was a genuine cut. It was from a punch, not from an elbow. And I just couldn't get to grips with him. He was just underneath me, and I didn't.
Did the height disadvantage work in his favour in this case?
Yeah, massively, because he was just underneaf and he was what they call a roller.
Yeah. Tyson style.
Yeah, and at the time, I hadn't experienced anyone like that's what it is. Boxing, it's a learning curve. And funny enough, my last fight that I had a fight last year. I decided I want to come out and I want to have another one. Now, I promote boxing shows. So I was the promoter and everything of this show. And I went out and I handpicked this fella for me. And once again, he was around about 6 foot. He's about a stone or two lighter than me. But he's a lot more experienced. And I knew my skill set would beat his. He was a roller. And, you know, we're very, very awkward. So I knew my skill set would beat his, but I didn't want someone that I was just going to bowl over. I couldn't have lived with that. I wanted someone that was going to give me a challenge. Now, this guy, he's tough as fuck. And he doesn't roll over for anyone. And he just carries on throwing. He's not the most skilled. But
he take a punch.
He takes a punch and he's just non-stop. And he's non-stop. And I thought, that's what I want. I want someone to challenge me and I want someone to push me. So I handpicked him, and it was good because he was similar to this guy that beat me all them years ago, but I'd worked on it, like I just knew I did.
So this was your chance 20 years later
to try and
avenge that defeat.
Redeem,
yeah,
in a way, you know.
So it was a bit of atonement from a boxing perspective, yeah.
And as I say, what I didn't want it to see, because the network that I have now, because I work with a lot of promotional boxers over promotional boxing groups across the UK, because I've had people coming up from Brighton and stuff. I could have gone out and picked an easy fight for me, you know, but I wanted to get someone that was going to push me, not just roll over. And, you know, it does happen, unfortunately. They'll turn up, they'll take the wage and they go away. You know, they roll over after a round or two. I knew this guy wasn't, and, you know, the proof was in the pudding because he was still throwing punches on the last bell, on the final bell. But I enjoyed it because I think I controlled the fight. I knew exactly what I was going up against, and I just knew that my skill set was going to beat his.
Was it a good victory?
Yeah, it was good for me, you know, and
good.
just good to get in because, my last competitive fight was 20 years before.
Wow.
You know, so there was a 20-year gap. I did have an exhibition fight in 2013 against Julius Francis. I don't know if you remember Julius Francis. Yeah. And he boxed.
Big black guy.
From Brixton.
Yeah.
And he's famous for when he got knocked out by Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
He had the Daily Mirror
on his shoes.
That's what he's famous for. Well, he's not famous for that because
it was on his soles, wasn't it?
It
was on his soles because he knew he was going to be on his ass, showing his feet in the air.
I feel like I've done him a disservice there by saying that's what he's famous for. He was British, Commonwealth, and I think European heavyweight champion. You know, and he'd beaten a lot of good fighters, and he'd been in with 5 world champions, Tyson, Vitaly Klitschko, and a couple of others I can't think of at the moment. But, you know...
so when you're having an exhibition match, What's the difference between a competitive match?
Exhibition
Are you pulling
matches,
your punches?
Yeah, in a way. No. Like you land 1 or 2 punches, and then you step off. It's like a spar. So when you're doing like a lane and spar, basically you're getting your shots off, and then you'll step off. So if you've got someone on the ropes and you hit them with 2 or 3 heavy shots, you don't go in then with another 2 or 3 heavy shots, you know, because it's a learning process. So you'll step off, gives you the other fella the chance to come back. So like that's what we were doing. I was getting my shots off, he was getting his shots off.
How do you control the fury though if he smacks you straight in the face and, you know, you want to retaliate? Turns into a fight then, doesn't it?
Not really, no, because like we were both experienced.
Yeah.
And you know, he was a nice guy as well, you know, he really was. He was a gentleman. And I had bruised ribs at the time, so the fight was getting called off. So I had bruised ribs and I'd overdosed on ibuprofen and Voltarol and stuff like that, trying to get ready for the fight. So and he was aware of it, and he caught me with a jab in the second round, and he just seen me wince and nearly fold over, and he took a step back and he moved around the ring, and then he carried on. He gave me about 20 seconds. We were just moving round, and then he gave me 20 seconds, you know, and then I done the same with him further on. I think I caught him with 2 or 3 punches. I don't think they hurt him, but then I stepped off and never stood in, you know.
So we've jumped here, like 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So we've gone from your ABA career, yeah, and now we're talking about you running as a promoter, boxing events. So let's focus on that a little bit. Tell us how that came about and how, I'm guessing this is how you got back into boxing, is it?
Yeah, I wanted to go.
And tell us when this happened. And
this happened back in now 2010. So I wanted to go back in. I wanted to do something for myself, and I'd seen that there was these white collar boxing events, and I just thought, I can do this. You know, I was a personal trainer at the time. I'm training people. I can do this. And I started to work in a gym in Aintree called Fitness First at the time, and the manager who took me on, David, we went into partnership together. I went in, he gave me a contract, duty manager, and he said, right. And I said, look, listen, I've got this other little sideline here. Do you want to come in on it with me? And he went, yeah. And he worked well because I was like the coach side of it, and he was like the
marketing.
You know, he was really good. He was the gym manager. You know, he's really good at that side of it. So like I done all of the coaching and stuff, and then he would do all of like the paperwork side of it, you know, and we worked well as a team. And we done that for a few years until he went over to Australia, and then I took over the reins of everything because I'd watched what he'd done, and then I just carried on, you know, the promoting side of it and everything. And basically what we do is we get people of all ages from 18 and above. I've had 50-odd year old, like obviously I'm 50 myself, so I had a 55-year-old fellas, the oldest one that we had, and it's the best thing that they have. They always come to me, and it's so pleasing for me because they say, oh, I've always wanted to box, I've always wanted to box. I take them under my wing, I train them, and then my job then is to match them up. And there was one fight last year where we had a 52-year-old guy, and he was 15 and a half stone, quite well built, Brian, and I matched him up with a lad from over the water. They'd both had one fight each, but the lad from over the water was only 13 stone. So how you work it out is like, so obviously, but he had 20 years youth on him, but he was two stone lighter. And on paper, like when you look at them, it looks a bit of a mismatch because one's a big guy and he was well built, well defined, and the other one wasn't. But the youth and the weight difference, they even themselves out. That ended up being a draw. It was such a close fight. It was a draw. So it's all about the matchmaking. And it's so hard to try and get these matches right. You're going to make the odd mistake, and there's going to be a stoppage. But like my record speaks for itself because I think in the 10 years that I've been doing it, I've had about 300 fights on them shows, and I would say I've only had about 15 to 20 stoppages.
Tell me about how you take a guy who's never boxed before, competitively at least, and how you shape him, and what's the training process involved? How long does it take?
Well, it's only a 10-week training camp, right? Now, people say you can't train someone to be a boxer in 10 weeks, but the guy who he's fighting has only had 10 weeks training as well. So that's how it evens it out. You know, you're not getting them to go in the ring with fucking Floyd Mayweather. You're getting them to go in with someone of equal ability and of equal fitness. So I have a 10 to 12 week training camp, and when they come in with me, it's all about defense, footwork defense. What I was trained as when I was younger. So it's footwork defense, and then after I instill that into them for 3 or 4 weeks, then I get them in the ring. And all they've learned for 3 or 4 weeks is how to avoid being hit. And then I get them to start jabbing. And all they can do is jab only. So which is, the jab is just like the lead left hand or the lead right hand if they're a southpaw. And all they can do is jab. And what that does is then, because they're not going in, if I was to just say, right, open spar, they just go in and it'd be all hell would break loose. They just start throwing in because it's the first time they've done it. Because they know they can only throw a jab and it's controlled, you know, it's conditioned sparring. And then the next week, I'll say, right, now you can throw in the right hand. But they've learned to control that distance then, you know. And it's slowly but surely, but I work mostly on learning them how to defend. And then the other bit, the aggressiveness bit, that comes out naturally anyway, once they get in there, you know. And as I say, when I do my boxing shows, I would say 95% of them have ended in point decisions, you know, and the matchmaking speaks for itself.
So is this what Ringside Fitness Box is? Is that where this came from? Is that the brainchild? Yeah,
well, the name of the boxing side of it was called Ringside Fight Club. So I got that name.
And is this still going, Ringside Fight Club?
Ringside, yeah. Unfortunately, this lockdown's fucked it all up.
Have we got any secret underground fights that we want to share?
No. So like I got the name from Fight Club from the movie.
Yeah.
And then obviously Ringside, it was like an American brand. So I just amalgamated putting them in together. And then that's where I come from that. And it's got a reputation now because I've been on this circuit now for 10 years, and I hope I've got a good reputation, because any of the boxers that come to me from, like I say, I bring them up from Brighton or whatever, I give them, they all get paid, they all get looked after, and if they win that fight, they don't get ripped off, you know, they don't get ripped off. I have 3 independent judges, and there's some fights where I've had ticket sellers that I want to win to come back and sell more tickets on the next show. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. They get beat. And that's where I've tried to get my reputation, is that people will come to my shows, like outside boxers, knowing that they're going to get a fair crack of the whip, you know.
So it sounds like it's been a successful period. And
yeah, that's it. Like, you know, it has. It really has.
Would you say that this is one of the things that you've succeeded at most in your life, running this for the last 10 years?
Yeah, it's one of, I definitely would say, yeah. Because it's, you know, when I first started it, I started it with David, and it was like a partnership, and then I learned off him, he learned off me. He then he emigrated, he went to Australia, and then I took over the reins, and it was a big thing for me. Can I do all of it on my own? And I look at it as a massive achievement that I actually do it all on my own now, alongside running my business as well.
So this is your baby, isn't it? This is what you're putting your heart, your soul, your flesh, your blood into. And when coronavirus hit, whatever we want to call it, what were your initial impressions or ideas on how it was threatening your business? Did you know from the off that there was something wrong with what they were doing, or, you know, how did you approach the threat to your business at the beginning of this scandal?
See, at the first, when we were getting told we're going into lockdown and that, I was thinking, nah, they're not going to put us into lockdown. This is bollocks. Looking at the news, seeing all of like the army trucks coming in Italy with loads of corpses on it, I just thought, no, this is all bollocks. It isn't true. Seeing people dead in the streets in China, something just didn't ring true. And what I've seen of the media in the past couple of years, I'm just thinking they're trying to put something, they're trying to scare us here. It's not as bad as what it actually seems. And then when it did come over here and there was rumours we're going to go into a lockdown, I just thought, nah, they're not going to go into lockdown. I've never seen anything like that in my lifetime.
Yeah,
we're not going to go into a lockdown. this greedy bastard government wouldn't allow us to do that. You know what I mean? They're going to lose too much from it. And I was so shocked when we went into it. It was initially for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then it was another 4 weeks or so to help the NHS. More bullshit. Trying to tug on our heartstrings. Another 4 weeks just to help the NHS. And then it ended up being another 16 weeks.
Would you, because what I'm finding is quite interesting, right, is that there's a lot of people who are waking up, right, to the bigger scam, the bigger things that are going on behind the scenes. And it seems to me that this scandal has been a huge catalyst for people to snap out of either the collective amnesia they've got, or they're now prepared to face the hard facts that are depressing when you start researching them. And is that I've picked up on one of the things you said in either one of your videos, or maybe it was at one of the marches, in which you said it's took me 50 years to wake up.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite profound, and I thought that was interesting, because there's a lot of other people who I'm speaking to having a similar kind of expression. And that's why we're seeing the numbers we are in terms of resisting. But is that something that happened to you? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the awakening part of it was I think I've always been questioning. I've always questioned. But the awakening part was when it actually hit me now and hit everyone around me, our business people, everyone around me. And I just thought, now this is where I've got to start looking. And as I said in one of my videos as well, I'm going in the rabbit hole now and I'm going balls deep. I haven't gone that deep down. I've just took what was at the top, because that's all I needed to see. I didn't want to go further down and muddy the waters. So there's enough shit that's coming to the top. And I was just looking, I was thinking, this is bullshit. It was all contradictory. Everything's been contradictory. And then the numbers that were coming out. And the big thing for me, don't know anyone who's been put in hospital with it. Nobody. And that's the big thing. And how many months are we into this pandemic now, or pandemic? It's near enough a year. I still don't know anyone that's been put into a hospital. Certainly don't know anyone that's died. So that was the big thing for me. And it's like an awakening. And the more I started to question, and when I look at the news now, I don't take that as the truth. I don't take that. Everything that the news is saying now, I'm questioning everything. And my wife is as well. We're both looking at it and going, well, that's not right. That's not right. So we look at it now just to argue with the news.
Are you finding any of your friends or your family are having the same kind of, processes, or they still got the wall up?
I fucking wish they had the same process. No, a lot of people around me are still slowly coming round, some of them, but still not coming round. They still want to believe. The media are so complicit in this, and they've got the hooks into people so much, especially the BBC. The BBC is supposed to have like this reputation around the world.
They're one of the worst propaganda outlets in the world, and they do so at the luxury of the taxpayer. When most of the funds that they'll be collecting is of vulnerable old biddies, who are faced with bailiffs threatening to put them in jail. So the people who are taking the BBC wage, that's where they're getting their wage from. And then at the same time, we're paying with our taxes to, take that propaganda from them on a daily basis. But I think their grip that they had on society, or from a news perspective, is starting to wane, because more and more people are waking up to it. And now we've got this defund the BBC movement, which has to happen. How can we have a tax that to watch a TV channel that's enforced with the threat of going to jail? I've gone right off it, and as I say, we grew up as the BBC was one of the best news outlets, and it had a reputation worldwide. Now, nothing. And that goes for all of them at the moment, all of the mainstream media, but the BBC, that reputation that they did have is long gone. So, what are your thoughts on what's going to happen? I mean, how do we get out of this?
I think basically it's people power. I might be naive here, but I think it's people power. As soon as we wake up and we stand up and we start saying, no, we're not going to have this, and we then go to our elected representatives, the MPs, who are making all of the decisions and telling us, oh, this is the way it's got to be, this is the way we've got to do it this way, we have to say this. Fuck all that shit. We go to them and we tell them, we don't want this bullshit. We want to go back to normal. We want it to work this way, and we want it to work this way. I think we can change it, but we've got to have the numbers and we've got to put the pressure on them, you know, because we're just, you know, we're getting told shit all the time. If you ever watch, and I stopped watching it about a year ago, Question Time, and these politicians are coming on and we have to do this and we have to do this. No, it's like, no, we don't fucking have to do this. If the people don't want us to do that, and we have referendums on all these different things, like the big thing for me was the foreign aid budget, and all of these politicians would come on, like millionaire politicians come on, yeah, we have to have the foreign aid. No, we fucking don't. If them countries are in crisis, we can send them aid as and when they need it. But we're not just going to send them fucking aid just because it's the done thing. And every year now, we're sending some of these poorer countries £500 million, regardless.
Well, we send China and India aid, two of the biggest economies in the world. Yeah. So it's clearly not for aid.
Yeah,
clearly not for aid.
It's for something else.
It's a bribe.
Yeah.
Right? It's trying to buy favour or it's a payoff.
Yeah.
One of the two. It's not for aid. That's a total lie.
Yeah.
It's a total scam. You know, how can we be giving aid to China?
I know. And India, as you say, India's got a fucking space program.
It's massive country, massive economy, bigger than ours.
And I know they have a lot of, I know they do have a lot of like people who are on the poverty line. There's a lot of poverty there, but that's for them to sort out. They've got the money to sort it out. So why are the British taxpayers
Well, there's something else going on, isn't it?
There's something else going on.
Clearly not for aid.
And if you did a referendum and you asked the British people if they wanted to continue putting £16 billion into the foreign aid budget, I reckon you get like 80-90% saying no. You know?
They won't ask that question, will they? That's the thing.
But that's what I think we need to change it now. And like when the people do stand up, there's the issues like that need to be addressed. And we're getting told at the moment, oh no, we have to do that. This is the correct way. We have to do these things. And I don't think we do. I think there was, anyway, up until this year, there was a movement where we were moving away from all of that stuff. And the people were starting to have a little bit more say, you know, especially with, we had Brexit and stuff like that. They are having a little bit more say.
Can't see that happening now, can you?
That won't happen now. I can't see it happening now. No, I think that now is...
Because if we look a little bit wider than coronavirus, this is when it gets a little bit scary, right? Because if you pick up the narrative with the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset, and you start looking into the Great Reset and you see all the comments these guys are making quite openly and quite publicly that COVID-19 gives them a rare and small opportunity to push the Great Reset. And what is the Great Reset? Well, it appears to be modelled on communist China's totalitarian regime. And then the deeper you start looking into it, some of the illogical actions that the government are taking in relation to this COVID scandal marry up to the ambitions of the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab's Fourth Industrial Revolution. And that's when it starts to get a little bit, well, okay, you know, this is a little bit more serious than we think here. And these have got more long-range plans than are, you know, being spoken about, because the media certainly don't tell us about it, do they? But you've only got to go and look. They're all talking about it openly.
Yeah, that's what, when you have a look at different sources of information, you can see some of this stuff coming out, you know. This Great Reset, and it's going to be a cashless society. You know, I now try my best to use cash at every opportunity. I stand, and you want to see the looks of horror, I'll be in the supermarket and I'll go in my arse pocket and I'll pull out a wad of fivers. And this is what I do in the current climate. Every note, and I lick every single one as I'm counting, as you normally used to. Yeah. As you used to, especially with these new notes, because they stick like shit to a blanket, you know, they stick together. So I'm like that with every note. And then I'm looking around and I just look at people and they're looking at me in horror and I'm thinking, well, I'm 9 months into this pandemic now and that's what I've always done. And
oh, Barry, I seen a video. I seen one of your videos and it cracked me up. The Mersey Tunnel video.
Oh yeah. I had loads of problems. See, that was like.
So tell us the story of that because it's so good.
So I went through. I've been going, like, we always go over the water and we'll go to like Chester or New Brighton or whatever. And we went through and I gave him the £2. This is going back like 6 weeks prior to that. So I gave him £2 and he went, we don't give change no more. And I went, that's a bit strange. You don't give change. Now, it was only 20 pence change. So I went, what do you mean don't give change? And he went, blah. So we never give change. So when we were coming back through, I was fuming and Caesar was saying to me, don't say nothing. So I had a fiver. So I pulled out a fiver and I gave him the fiver and he went, we don't give change. And I went, what? It's £1.80 and you're not going to give me £3.20 change. We can't give it change, can't give it change. I said, why not? Because the money goes into a jug. And he doesn't touch it. He's got like his gloves on. It's like, what the fuck? It's money. Yeah. You know, like,
it's a psychological effect of saying money is now toxic. Don't touch cash.
And it's like, it's fucking money.
Yeah.
Just take it. You know, I've just got that money from change from the restaurant we've just been in. So I was fuming over it. And then we went through and then I come back the next time. So basically what it was, I made him renege on it and I said, look, listen, I want my money back. I'm not going anywhere. He said, look, I'm not supposed to do this. So he gave me my fiver back and I went, I'll pay by card then. So I said, I thought you weren't supposed to give the money back. And he went, I can't, you know, it's a one-off. I'm not doing that. I'm never going to do it again. I went, Sam, well, it's my fucking money. You'll give me when I ask for it, you know. So then next time it happens and then on the occasion with the video, I just said to Teresa, I'm going to do this, see what happens. And funnily enough, the guy was a nice guy.
What did you do, though? You took a big bucket of change of 2s and 1s?
Yeah, so before I went, I had a bag of like, and it was £1.80 in 2s, 1s and 5s. And I was putting it in and I thought, I'm going to make use fucking wait and I'm going to put it in and then they would have had to count it individually, you know what I mean? And so when I get there and they put the buckets out, the little jug out, and I start putting it in little by little. And then I said, you don't give change to the guy. But the guy was boss. Yeah. He was like, he was on it and he knew that this was all bullshit, you know what I mean? So basically I wanted to have a little go at them, but I wanted it to be the guy from last time.
Yeah.
And play games with him.
Keep doing that one, because that's a cracker. But I always wonder, right, what would happen if you got to the barrier in Mersey Tunnel, because that's a massive scam, that Mersey Tunnel, because when it was first built, they said it'll only be a toll tunnel for this amount of time. Once we paid it off, don't worry, it's going to be free.
Yeah, right? That's right, because it got built in 77, didn't it, the Kingsway? And apparently in 1997, it was going to be free. Yeah. It's actually got dearer and dearer.
So I always wonder what would happen if you got to the barrier and said, nah, I've got no money. What could they do? Because they can't keep you there because it's false imprisonment. You know, so it's only a civil matter, isn't it? It's only a stupid toll. So I always wonder what would happen if he just sat it out and said, sorry, you got no dough on me today, mate. What are you going to do? And you've got a queue of cars behind you.
They've got a police station there.
But what can they do? Nick you for not paying a tunnel for 180? I don't know. I'd like to find out. Maybe I'll try it myself and report back. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of your gym, it's now getting a reputation as a freedom gym. Yeah.
Yes, because like I've had members. I've got about 40 or 50 members, and like some of them, and I've given them the option that they can still come if they want. But if they're a little bit worried, don't bother. You know, and a few of them haven't because of their jobs and that. They don't want to. You know, they don't want it to affect their jobs, because of whatever, like the scare tactics have worked on them. But I understand that because, you know, these people, they've manipulated them so well. You can understand where the scare, where the fear is coming from. So what I do is I just give them the opportunity to come if they want. And I just work behind the closed door think people just knock and then just let them in, you know.
I mean, how at risk is your business from closing? I mean, from just, you know, breaking even kind of thing? Are you...
Well, at the moment, it's not making any money at the moment. It's probably like I'm just probably paying the bills, the rent and stuff like that. So it's not making any money, and I'm surviving on my savings.
Yeah.
And so basically, the savings that I've had over the last couple of years, I'm surviving on that. No wealth from the.
I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it? It's like all these small businesses of people who've put their lives into it.
Yeah.
You know, they've put their heart, their soul, every last bit of cash they've got, and in some cases they're working, you know, not making much money because they're just trying to keep the business going. I mean, they've been hit the most.
Yeah.
You know, there must be so many businesses that have closed for good just because of this. You know, it's outrageous. It's a scandal. And I can't see, even when they lift the restrictions, there ain't going to be no bounce back like that, is there? It's going to take a good 12 months.
It's going to take a long time. Yeah. It's going to, like as I say, I'm living on my savings at the moment. So for me to get them back again, what I've spent, you're looking at another year or so for me to get them savings back in the bank, you know.
Well, it's like Liverpool had bounced back as a city. It bounced back from the 80s and, you know, the trawl through the 90s where it was, you know, finally starting to get back on its feet. You know, and from 2008 onwards, it's rebuilt itself as a cosmopolitan city. The council, in some respect, deserve credit for turning it into an attractive place to come from people from all over the world, from all over the country. And Liverpool was booming. It really was booming. And it took such a hit because the council set up tourism as being the main attractive business force in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it's tourism that's took the hit.
Tourism has been hit massively because once them cruise ships come in, and I think we have 2 or 3 cruise ships come into Liverpool every week, and what they do for this city, and obviously with the football clubs as well, then you have all of like the stag do's and the hen parties, and Liverpool's the #1 place. Then you've got the influx of the students that are coming in, and all they do, it's just party time for them when they're here, you know. So the city nightlife through the week. With the students, you know, I've worked on the doors, and like I know they support the city nightlife through the week, you know, and I do believe it'll get back. It's got to, but we've just got to be allowed to go straight back into it. None of this bullshit where we're going to do it in tiers and all of that. That's just nonsense.
Work,
you know, it's not about our safety at the moment. It's not, because the numbers and everything else contradict it. We've got to go straight back into it and see if we can try and claw something back out of it, you know.
Because that Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum said only yesterday or the day before there will be no return to the old normal, right? So it's like, what does that mean? You know, and how does that affect us all? And
well, that's scary if he's saying that, because...
But who is he? You know, why is this guy who's unelected, who lives in Davos in Switzerland, you know, telling us that we're not going to be returning to the normal? I mean, who is this guy? What's his power, and why does he have
that's where he's from then, Davos, and that's where they have that World
That's where they meet, in Davos. Yeah. They all go there for the World Economic Forum and plan whatever their nefarious ideas and goals and motives are. Yeah. He's like something out of a Bond film. You know, I keep expecting him to put his little finger to his bottom lip. You know?
That's what I think. You know, like with these like organisations, like obviously in Bond films, it's Spectre.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm thinking. Who the fuck are this Sage? You know what I mean? Who was Sage? Are they like Spectre under a different name? You know, have they infiltrated?
Yeah.
That's what you start thinking. It seems to be Sage at the moment who are pulling all the fucking strings. Who's behind them, and what's their motives? You know, that's why you've got to look at it.
Yeah, it's just a massive web, isn't it? You know, whichever direction you go in, it's hard to track. So, what are your thoughts on the Save Our City movement in terms of what happens next? You know, the next protest is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Will you be attending?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on how long that can continue? And it's.
I think that can continue all the way through till this nightmare ends. I really can't, because it's got to be we have to show that we're there and we mean business, and each week as well it's got to get bigger and bigger. Now the only way I can see it not being is it's stopping, is if like it's forcibly stopped with force. But then I would hope that people would then unite.
I don't know what law they've got to do that though, because that's what they're trying to do it through PCNs, aren't they? Trying to scare us by saying, here's a fine. Yeah, they can't do much else, I don't think, unless they really want to go totalitarian and start arresting people just because they're protesting, which is...
Well, I think they lose both ways. I think they lose both ways, because if they do go all totalitarian and they go into like the force side of it, there's going to be one pit like, you know, like that one guy who's walked out in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square. Yeah. There's going to be that moment, and they're going to like drop. They're not. Them people in the tanks are not going to run them over. They're going to say, "Yeah, we're going to have to stop this." It happened this week in Italy somewhere, and they stormed the town hall and they took off their helmets. Now,
but let's just talk about that for a minute, because that's a really interesting story. Don't know the location exactly, but what it turns out to be is that the people from a town or a city in Italy were protesting the lockdown, and their protest took on the shape of a siege of the town hall for 18 days straight. Right, so they just said, we're outside the town hall, we're not moving, you know, and we're staying here. And after the 18th day, for whatever reason, the police all took the helmets off and joined them. Yeah. And how inspirational is that? You know,
see, that should be worldwide news. Now, I don't know where I got that from, but I got that from social media. Yeah. I didn't get it from the BBC,
Twitter,
or from ITV, or any like that. It was through social media, through an alternative source. But something similar happened in the UK a few weeks back, didn't it? With the Black Lives Matter, and they took the knee and they took their hats off.
That was a little bit different, that though, wasn't it? Different political motivations were driving, you know, that surrender by the police.
Yeah, and what we want to do is it's like that surrender. We want a similar surrender, which incorporates everybody. You know, that this surrender that we're asking for now, this incorporates everybody, including the police. You know, it really does. So why aren't they, at the moment, I think they've got their hands tied, but we want them to join forces with us. We want them to do what that guy in the tank did in Tiananmen Square. We want them to do what the police in that town in Italy did. You know, we want them to do this, because then we're on the... We're going to progress from that then, you know.
Their industry hasn't been affected by the lockdown, has it? In fact, they've probably got more hours out of it, you know.
So, see, that's the thing at the moment. They're trying to put down these laws to try and stop us from earning money. But, like, no one stopped them earning money. And their thing is, well, it's our job, it's our job. Well, yeah, well, look at it from our side. This is our job. So we have to do this. You have to do that. You know, so you've got to look at it and I do believe a lot of them have a lot of sympathy for our cause and they're on side with us. But you've got to start speaking up and standing up.
I feel as if the only group, well, there's another group as well, the only group that benefit from this mask policy are the police.
Yeah.
Because we can't see the faces anymore. You know, they're hiding behind the mask when they're enforcing unlawful acts. In my view.
Yeah, I got nicked with a mask 20 years ago. I'm getting nicked for going to quit. You know, and like, you know, wherever I was walking down and he had the mask, he's got through in the bushes as he's seen a base going past you. You know, now these terrorists can turn up, and I'm not on about just the police. And I've seen these videos of like council officers turning up with fucking masks on, like. They're no fucking different from Dick Turpin and Jesse James. They've got masks on and they're trying to close people's businesses down and issue them with fines. That's going to then go into their fucking their money pit. You know what I mean?
One of your more provocative videos, which I thought was powerful, right? Really powerful, was when you said that we should be going to put them under siege at their houses, their places of work, whereas they're coming to ours. You know, breaking in and using the police and intimidating everyone and harassing people just because we're trying to earn a living. Yeah, and you talked about, well, let's turn it round on them. I thought that was a powerful message.
They're trying to intimidate us with all of this, arrests, fines, you're going to lose your business, take this away from you. Right, sound, if that's what you want to do, I won't wear a fucking mask, but I will turn up on your doorstep at 10 o'clock and I'll ask you the questions why you think it's right to take my business away from me, why I can't open up. And we'll see which is the most intimidating, you know, because that's the way it looks like it's going to go. We're going to have to go to these people's houses, you know, these council leaders, you know. As soon as that video went viral, they seen that. They took notice of that. That was a big thing for them. And we've backtracked a little bit since then. I think we've gone a little bit more down towards the line of peace and unity, which was the right way. But then we can only go so far down that path then, do you know what I mean? Before it starts coming back to where we initially started and said, right, let's start knocking on these pricks' doors now. Let's start asking them questions, why they think it's right. These are people who're supposed to be representing us. Totally. So let's see now. We're going to ask you these questions directly because we're the ones that are putting you in office.
We can't get near them to ask them the questions. That's the thing. You see, the well hidden away. Because there's an outrage from people, isn't there? And, we demand answers to these questions, and they just hide. They won't face the people. They won't face the public.
Well, I think this is where they have to be forced, where they can hide. You know, and if it means chasing them out the fucking city. That's it then, chase them out the city. Well, like, that's another small victory for us, do you know what I mean? They'll have to set up office somewhere else to do their dirty deeds, whatever it is that they're doing from their office.
So I think a critical date in what's happening is the proposed end of the first lockdown, this one we're in now. I think it's 4th of December, is it?
Was it the 4th or the 2nd, was it?
The 3rd of December. Yeah. Right now. Remember when it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve?
That's what I'm worried about.
And then, it turned into months. Right? Yeah. We haven't come out of it, have we? We're still in it, right? So if this current lockdown doesn't end and he wants to squeeze another one in, another month, I think you're going to start seeing some serious civil disobedience, especially taking Christmas away from families. And, it's psychological torture, isn't it? Really, is what they're doing.
I don't think that's stupid, to be honest. I think that we will come out of it. I really do think we will come out of it on the 2nd or maybe the week after. He might try and squeeze another week out. But I think we will be out of it over Christmas and New Year's just to appease us. And then we're going fucking back into it in January. I think we're going to get Christmas, New Year out of it just to appease us because it will be fucking bedlam.
Because he made a speech recently and he said definitively, he said that we're going to be out of this by spring. It's the first time he said that. It's the first time he's given a definitive date of when it's going to be over. So that tied in nicely with, the release of this vaccine, which was very conveniently announced the moment, President-elect Biden, right, was announced by the media.
It's been a big thing. Like, the media to me has all been, since this started in February, March, it's been nothing but doom and gloom. Doom and gloom all the way. Then we have the election over in America. Looks like it might have gone their way, where they've changed, where the media, the whole of the MSM have got what they wanted. Now, there's a brighter outlook. There seems to be a brighter outlook, whereas maybe we're not going to be in this lockdown as long as we thought. Maybe these numbers aren't as bad as what we initially thought. And it looks like this vaccine now, we're going to get that quicker than what we actually thought. And that's all come out within the last week.
I don't know enough about vaccines. In fact, I don't really know anything about vaccines. But what I do know, right, is about government hoaxes and scams by the media. Right? I know about them, and I'd spot them a mile off. And the timing of the release of the vaccine was so phony that obviously had it held back for a long time. The fact that it's Pfizer that has developed this so-called vaccine, one of the worst pharmaceutical companies in the world, one of the most fined pharmaceutical companies in the world, why they've been trusted with developing this, vaccine that will change the world to bring it back to normal. It's just so blatantly a scam. And I won't be taking any Pfizer vaccine, that's for sure. And they're going to have to force me. So that's going to be interesting to find out, how they're going to take it from voluntary vaccine to assaulting you by forcing you to take a mandatory vaccine. I don't think they'll ever go that far. What are your thoughts on the whole vaccine situation?
See, I'm like you. I'm not up on all of the vaccines and stuff like that. All I know is that I don't want to take a vaccine that I don't need to take, that they're trying to force upon us, like saying you need to take this. I think the way they're going with this is that you're going to get this health passport. And this health passport now, you know about the testing at the moment, don't you, with the kids in the schools?
A little bit, yeah. Sounds pretty creepy.
And they're getting a barcode.
Yeah.
They're getting a barcode. So that barcode, when they get tested, when the vaccines do get rolled out, it's going to be a similar thing, I think, a barcode. And then, obviously, that's going to be on your health passport. So then when you need to go to concerts, football matches, holidays, you're going to have to prove that you've had this vaccine.
But with Scousers, we'll know how to scam that, won't we? We'll find a way around that somehow.
Yeah, there'll be a way,
I ain't using no COVID health passport to go and watch a gig. I know that much for sure.
Yeah, there'll definitely be a way around it, but that's the way I think it's going to go. And if you haven't, like, there's, the majority of us aren't going to get that, you know. And then I don't know where it goes further down the line with that. Then
I think the health passport is pretty spooky, pretty creepy, and it's weird that they're wanting to bring it out and do it the way they're doing it. So it's like, what's going on with these fucking guys' heads, man?
Yeah.
Who's sitting there thinking of this shit, right? But I can't see how they can force it, right? Because it's literally strips away all our centuries-old fundamental rights that go right back to the Magna Carta and have travelled right through this country, that makes the legal system in this country the most enviable in the world and probably the most copied, right? Is that I can't see how they can wipe that just because of some, alleged pandemic of a virus. I think they'll try and push it in, but if they do that, then they're saying blatantly, look, we're no longer Great Britain as you knew it. We're now an authoritarian state that rules by diktat. There is no common law. There is no precedent. You're doing this because we say you're doing it. Because that's what I feel as if they're trying to say. But whether they can get that through is another matter.
See, the thing is, I think they are going to use the fear angle again, that you have to have it. Otherwise, you're going to be at risk of getting this virus that 99.6% people survive from anyway. So you're going to be at risk at that. But the big fear thing is that you won't be able to go to football matches, concerts, holidays. And let's face it, come on. They've had everyone after people wearing a fucking mask. So if they're going to wear a mask just to comply, just to go along with it,
you're right.
They've got them on the vaccine as well.
And that's probably one of the things about the mask, is to get people conditioned to being compliant about these things, so that when they do bring in, look, your rights and privileges are going to be revoked, like in Nick. Right? If you don't behave, your rights and privileges get removed, don't they? Your right to a telly, the PlayStation, or whatever it is while you're in jug. If you don't behave and do as you're told, we're removing those privileges to make this experience more difficult than it needs to be. They're going to use the same tactics, or try to use the same tactics, by saying, we're going to remove your right to enjoyment, right to go to football, to go to gigs, unless you do this. Pretty spooky.
It's scary how it's going to pan out. But I'm just being, what I've got to do is I've just got to be confident that we can. Positive, confident that there's going to be, there's going to be like bright days at the end of this,
Yeah. Okay, so wrapping up, what's your message to people? We want you to continue with Barry's daily updates. Those videos have got to keep going. Are we going to, see more and more of them?
The thing goes, I wasn't really... I done one today because I was having a little bit of a mood today, so I done one today. I wasn't going to do one anymore, do you know what I mean? I just thought that was going to be it now, but as long as... If I can see I can get more people, if I can get 100 more people coming next week, and 100 more people the next week, I'll carry on with them. Do you know what I mean? If I think that's what... And the messages that I'm getting back...
I don't think there's any reason for you to stop. I mean, people are taking a lot of solace from them and enjoying it and laughing and, giving them encouragement.
So that's what I'm getting from it. It's... See, when I might have a bad day and then I'm going to get a little bit spiritually, and I'm not spiritual, I'm not religious or nothing like that, but I was having a bad day a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought, you know what, forget it, I'm not going to bother no more. And as soon as I said it, I started getting messages. No way. And I got about 15, 20 messages, and some of them were saying, Barry, keep going. I'm like, fuck, you know, it's like a message from above, but as I say, I'm not religious.
Yeah, well, maybe you are now.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I don't know which one to go to.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your message to people that are listening in? You know, what would you like to say to people who have watched your videos, have tuned into this podcast? You know, what do you want to say?
There's no sides in this. We're all in this together. This is for the benefit of us all. There's no sides, political, football, anything like that. We're all in it. We've all got the same goals, and that's to get back to the way we were last year. You know, life wasn't perfect last year, but it's fucking better than what it is now, and it's better than the future that these pricks are predicting for us. So our goal is my message is, everyone that wants to get back to the way we were living our lives last year, let's fucking work and let's fight towards it. Let's all join together and let's rise up and stop these fucking lunatics from taking us down the path that they want to take us.
Fantastic. Couldn't have put it better myself. Barry, if people want to find you, what's your Instagram channel called?
Barry Ringside.
Barry Ringside. And Barry, it's been a real honour. I appreciate you coming on, and I love everything that you're doing. Keep going. Don't stop. Everyone loves it. Thanks a lot, Barry.
Thanks a lot.